All right. So today we're going to be talking about van EDC in terms of safety and security and what you should always kind of have with you. Now, before we get too deep into this, I want to start by saying this is van EDC in a sense of things that you need for yourself, not necessarily recovery gear. I'll do other videos and I have some videos out on stuff like that. Honestly, this applies to off-roading, overlanding, anything really, even just everyday carry for a reason, because it's just good things to have in your vehicle. First and foremost, I don't think this will be too much of a surprise. This is the My Medic, so this is like the single person one. This has a ton of stuff in it. You can find video reviews going through this specific pack and everything in there. I did add on a tourniquet. That's one thing. I don't necessarily like the tourniquet that this came with. Tourniquets are a very important thing to have in general, so now I have a backup. And it's easy to access. You'll notice it's on the outside. Same with the scissors. Everything else is going to be on the inside. The nice thing with this too, it's easy. I can grab and go with it if I need to carry this a couple hundred yards wherever, maybe go help someone else. Really big, important thing. I'm not saying this is the best. I will say this has everything that checked my boxes, plus a few things like the tourniquet. And I'm not talking like bug spray, Neosporin type stuff. Like make sure you have enough stuff that if something happens, if you fall onto a pointy object, like you're hiking and you fall onto a tree, hurt a leg, injure yourself, just be prepared. So number one, first and foremost, med kit. And I actually carry two of these. So I have a little tiny med kit that kind of goes with me. So if I'm out hiking, going off for a few miles, this has some more basic stuff in it, but it also will keep me safe. Also with my dog, this can attend to certain things she might have happen to her. So again, just be prepared. That way I don't have to worry about it. I have this little guy always in my backpack with me. Then I've got the bigger pack when I need it. Bear spray. Animals can happen. If you've seen any of like the crazy mountain lion, cougar attacks or them chasing people out and about, it's just easy to carry. It's a little cumbersome, sure, but trust me, if you're in an instance where, especially if you see a bear, you're gonna be so happy to have this. They make kind of gas canisters that make loud noises. There's a lot of different deterrents. This is something that is always with me in my van. And quite frankly too, when you're in the middle of nowhere, if there's sketchy people, it's bear spray, but this is going to help you in a non-lethal way in a lot of scenarios. So definitely big on my list. Always have some bear spray with you when you're out in nature. That brings us to comms. There's a bunch of different things. Obviously your cell phone is number one, hopefully always on you already. There's other connectivity means then that you should always have as backup. So one thing recently you'll notice back here is my Starlink satellite. So that was awesome because I had times the other day I was actually in a national forest, Big Canyon. They're like, yeah, you're definitely not gonna have service. I was trying to figure out if any of the sites were open or available, was able to set that up. Slightly cumbersome, but boom, I've got full internet, unlimited internet too, so I don't have to worry about it. Did a video on that if you wanna see a review. Summary is, anywhere that you have skies open, you're going to get signal. It's going to be fast enough to do everything you need to do on the internet within reason. If you have certain trees, some tree coverage, unfortunately at times it does have difficulty getting through even like slight tree coverage if it needs to point that way. So directionally it can be a little bit of a nuisance, but overall satellite comms are big. Now, true emergency, and I know Apple just tried to kind of solve for this. I think you still should go beyond that, honestly, because your cell phone can die. You can break it very easily. Get a rugged, purpose-built device for SOS, for notifying your family, for messaging people when you're in the absolute middle of nowhere, or maybe you don't have time to set up a Starlink, you're hiking, whatever, satellite comms. So you basically got the InReach Mini, has a very popular one out there, works great. That is a Garmin. This is the Montana. So I'll be honest, I've had some issues with this. I run this in my vehicle at all times. It has a lot of information on the screens, your altitude, your speed, a lot of stuff that I like to be able to look at a glance. Specifically altitude, I find super useful because I'm going up and down a lot. I've got a lot of canisters, so rotopacks, things that could actually be affected by the altitude. So it's a big reason I like this. It also has full offline maps, which we'll talk about shortly. But right now, in terms of satellite communication, I can text family, I can send them my location. It can automatically update that location periodically. When you say messages, like not preset, you can do presets. Those are actually free with the way their plan works. I'm talking full on, I can have a conversation. I can say, hey, I just made it to camp. Here's what I'm thinking. They can ask a question, I can reply. So that's really cool. And all those messages come with GPS coordinates to your family. And those can go to their cell phones, those can go to their email. You have a lot of options with this. And you'll notice on the side, the big SOS button, that is the hey, I need help. The Montana in general, now like I said, it's always plugged in, it's always charging, it's set up kind of in vehicle mode where when it senses a charge, it turns on automatically, then it turns back off. I've had this thing randomly turn off a lot on me, and I've had times where I've gotten in the vehicle, it should be charged and it's not. I'm using a magnetic USB adapter, so it could be that. So I don't want to fully fault it for that, but there's a lot of times it just shuts off randomly. It's not fully charged when it should be. And for a personal safety device like this, that does kind of concern me. Hopefully it's not specific to this. I at least want to convey I have seen that issue with this. I've never heard about that with the InReach Mini. I think they just came out with an InReach Mini 2, so check that out. Definitely worth, I think it's $9.99 for the cheapest plan for a monthly that you can have for this. Peace of mind. That's what this is. It's peace of mind. And for 10 bucks a month, you'd rather have that than something happen in nature and you need help and can't get it. So while we've got these, Google Maps on your phone, different things you can download offline. Great. A lot of times when you're out, you may be in an area where, one, those aren't going to cover all the trails and things that are going to be out there. It's not going to necessarily have topo, elevation. I have multiple backups. My watch actually has downloaded maps for the entire North America region. I've got the Montana, which has kind of more specific trails, hiking, things like that. And I've got the Overlander, which has off-road trails, topo, BLM. These both have BLM, public land boundary lines, which are super useful. Totally downloaded, so I can just see, oh, look, I can go camp over here for free. I can go hang out. This is public land. Oh, this is not. And a very specific line drawn where it is and isn't. They'll update over Wi-Fi, so those should be relatively accurate. Little helicopter coming through. All right, I think the helicopter's gone. So yeah, offline maps. Have something offline. Cell grid goes down, connection doesn't work, you're mobile, whatever reason. It's so easy and nice to have something that's got offline maps so you can figure out where the heck you are, where you need to go, and how to get there. Water filtration. So I've got a big old tank on this guy, 21 gallons, fresh water at all times. That said, I still run it through this jerry can. That jerry can Lifesaver has full virus, bacteria, everything. You can throw a charcoal filter in there. I don't use charcoal filters because you got to replace them so frequently, and it's mostly for taste. It's not actually doing anything to benefit like how the water will affect your system. So that's good to have. These things have an insane, I want to say this is a 20,000 liter filter, which is like, you can run it every day for years as one person and you're going to be fine. So I use that anytime I'm out here. I'll pump actually the water through the main tank on here into that, drink out of that, and then I'll use shower, soap, brush my teeth, all that stuff. I use the normal system because it should be fine. That said, here's where this comes into play. Bug out scenarios, any type of, hey, water shut off, which I actually had in Austin randomly. It was one of the first times I think in my life. My water just turned off randomly, didn't come on for a few hours, which is like, okay, what do you do? Well, I have this filled up in my vehicle. I've got a filter in my fridge, so I had means to continue drinking water. Luckily, it came on a few hours later, but you got to figure this out. And then also, especially when you're out in nature, you might be drinking out of a lake, a stream, you never know. So just as backup, that's always good. Now, again, I've got this 20,000 liters. This will run forever. I actually have a backup filter, but I even have a backup for backup. And then I had another backup on top of that, but it broke. So let's go on the roof. Don't look at my code. By the way, video is out or will be out on this thing. Freaking love this. I will never know how to say this. Catadine, Catadin, doesn't matter. This is actually something I got back in 2020. I was living in LA, riots were happening, and I just wanted the most bulletproof, reliable water filter I could find. So this is the Catadin Pocket. It is a little more pricey than others, but it's just a giant ceramic filter. This does bacteria, it does not do viruses, so you may need to boil. In nature, it's pretty rare. You're gonna come across a lot of viruses that you have to worry about in water supply, like dead animals, animals that are feces, things like that in the water. That's when you have to be careful about it. In general, with streams, running water, it's more bacteria you gotta watch out for. I'm not an expert on this, but that is at least what I've researched. This is easy to go. So for example, if I have to bug out, whatever happens, like the main water filter, I'm not carrying that with me. This goes in my backpack. And this also does, I should know this stuff, but at least 5,000 liters, I wanna say. So like this again is a multi-year type of investment that'll last you a long time. Again, super low maintenance, reliable, easy to use. I've used MSRs in the past. I will never recommend them. The first time I was out with my MSR, it broke. The actual pump was not pumping water. It got just enough we were able to sip. Of course, I was like, guys, I got a brand new filter. We were backpacking just for one night. No one else brought a filter. And so we had to rely on that. And basically I had to pump like 100 times just to get a little squirt of water out each time. That's obviously an exaggeration. But here's what I'm saying. I don't trust MSR after I bought that, unfortunately. I hope a lot of you have better experiences with them. I did not. And for a water filtration device, I'm not going to risk it. Do I dare try to film while I climb down the ladder? It's not going to be pretty. Could be funny. Could be funny. So the last thing that I don't have, because I wanted a virus protection along with that pocket, something that was portable. I had a UV light. Katadyn made it. I forget the exact name. It was like 120 bucks. You'll see in a different video, I had some roof storage that was waterproof that totally failed, destroyed that thing. It was a battery powered UV filter, obviously. So that stopped working. So I got the Grail push bottle. I debated getting another UV filter. Honestly, those LED lights, you have to charge them. I'd rather have a combined kind of physical filter. And so what I did was, yeah, that Grail, that'll do both. So it kind of doubles down the pocket, but it will get viruses if I really need it. And it doesn't last nearly as long. So basically I can use the pocket as primary. The Grail is like, hey, there might be viruses in this water for whatever reason. Let me just be double safe and use that instead. Thing is, right, you need water. You need water daily. So again, non-scientist, I think it's like 72 hours max, something like that. Depending on your body, depending on how hydrated you are, what you're expending without water. Food, you can go so much longer. You can go much longer. It's also sometimes a lot easier to find food potentially. Water is, once you find it, if you have filtration, you're good, you're set. Last two things then. I'm gonna throw multi-tool and knives into the same category. You should have both. I have too many, but I've got a flipper Spyderco. This is kind of my Grail knife. Love this thing, Rubicon. I've got another Spyderco here. This is different steel. This one is kind of more pocketable. This is more my hiking knife, different blade type too, you can see. And then multi-tool, this is a Leatherman. Freaking love this thing. This has just so many. It's got pliers. So it's got double-sided 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 bits, so 10 total bits. I've got hex, I've got Torx, I've got Phillips, slot head screwdrivers, like so many options on this. This is a really reliable tool that I've been using for a long time. Hammer, seatbelt cutter, bottle opener, all the things you need. So this is always in my vehicle or my backpack. And then knives in general are just handy, depending on what you need to do. Honestly, it's just something, when you start carrying them, you'll realize how frequently you use them. And especially with the tool aspect of a multi-tool, kind of covers all your bases. If you're okay with the size and the weight, it's going to be a little bit bigger than just a pocket knife. But cutting rope, cutting fishing line, if you did have to hunt or something like that. I've used it to honestly just cut meat at dinner, like, hey, I'm having a steak. Probably you could obviously use dinnerware for that, but it's something that once you have, you realize the real purposes and utility for and how frequently you need it for. That brings us to the last category, which I'll intentionally be kind of vague on, but personal protection. Right? That can mean a lot of things. So bear spray is probably my go-to. That's the easiest. You can use that just about anywhere. There's certain like country lines. I don't think you can necessarily take it into Canada, but generally state to state, you're okay taking bear spray everywhere. Obviously you won't necessarily carry it in like a downtown scenario, but when you're out in nature, you should always have it with you. Super safe. And again, as kind of like a fail-safe backup, you're feeling a little unsafe. It's basically super strong mace. So just saying that's a very good option for personal protection. Also do things like I highly suggest you are trained, obviously take some training. Maybe if you get a concealed carry permit, that's another alternative. So you can always have something like that. Should you unfortunately be attacked by an animal, whatever reason, I can tell you as someone who camps by themselves a lot, there's a lot of times where I'm just nervous out in nature. Like you're hearing a lot of different noises at night, especially when you're in areas like I was just in Montana. There are bear warnings everywhere. Honestly, I don't know that a handgun is going to do much to stop a bear, but it's at least peace of mind. And yeah, it could, right? It could. Having protection versus not. Obviously, there's legal, local laws. All I can recommend is if you want to go that route, get properly trained. Know how to use it, know how to use it safely, know how to load it properly, know how to unload it properly. That's my spiel. So this is going to do it. That was kind of everything EDC. These are the things that I'm just like, I don't care if I'm going for a day or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'm going to have these things with me. These are not recovery related. So we're not talking about the Max Tracks. We're not talking about things that are vehicle specific, but these are more what should you have in your vehicle for your own personal safety. That's my immediate list of things. If I missed anything, if you guys have any follow-up comments, suggestions, please leave them below. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you got something out of it. As always, it's been a pleasure, and I'll see you next time.